This presentation is going to be on adaptive teaching with students with ADHD in art and design. So to begin with, what is ADHD? ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and it is a neurodevelopmental condition that affects daily functioning, and it is commonly characterized by inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. So inattention generally is characterized by, in a classroom setting, by making careless mistakes, so to speak, and difficulty focusing. Hyperactivity and impulsivity can also be seen as fidgeting, restlessness, trouble sitting still, interrupting, and blurting out answers. So, what is an ADHD diagnosis and how does one attain one? So, it requires at least 6 symptoms that are beyond age appropriate. These could be symptoms that I've mentioned previously. These symptoms significantly impair aspects of one's life, such as at school, home, and at work. These symptoms have persisted for at least 6 months, and the symptoms have been present since before the age of 12. Whilst there is no cure for ADHD, it is highly treatable. And this presentation is going to look into some of the strategies to help manage it within a classroom setting, especially in an art classroom. So, ADHD in art equals creative magic. ADHD symptoms such as impulsivity and distractibility can translate into creativity, curiosity, willingness to take risks, and an ability to think outside of the box. The art classroom provides unique opportunities for sensory engagement, creativity, and emotional expression. Adaptive teaching in art and design can reduce ADHD symptoms and improve classroom success. So, I'm now going to talk about some research-based environmental strategies. So, Habib and Ali said that art therapy was shown to reduce ADHD symptoms, and some of these strategies that can be brought into the classroom are setting clear boundaries, having structured lessons, using a diverse range of materials to maintain focus. Also, sensory and quite tactile materials seem to have more positive effects. Using positive reinforcement and kind of using verbal and tangible rewards. Behavioral modeling and prompting. This could be sitting next to a focused peer or even sitting close to the classroom at the front where the teacher is. Using creative outlets to channel impulsivity and redirect that energy, and encouraging task completion and sustained attention. Thuru Kuruman said that successful strategies in secondary art classrooms are using curriculum and behavioral flexibility. So, for example, play-based exploration and encouraging that energy and that sense of curiosity into the classroom and making the most of it. Using modified instructions, for example, a multimodal delivery, repetition, and frequent breaks, making sure that you're really breaking down that information so that it's more digestible with a shorter attention span, which is commonly seen in ADHD people. One-to-one time to address attention and motor challenges and involving school and public communities for student engagement. So bringing in a wider source of role models as well is really important. Betker said that you need to adapt the physical space. So, for example, you could use visual timers and transition warnings, use checklists and repeated verbal cues, reduce distractions through layout and sensory design, provide flexible workstations, seating or standing. This is really good in the art classroom because usually the spaces are flexible anyway. So there is that movement from standing, walking over to a demonstration and coming back that's kind of built in. And this links to embedded movement naturally as well. For example, distributing materials, you can ask ADHD students to distribute equipment and materials at the start of the lesson and collect them at the end to kind of naturally build in those kind of movement breaks, and opt for hands-on task over passive activities. So, putting the research into practice. The student that I decided to look at has a diagnosis of a few different SEN needs. My placement is actually at an SEN school, so this was quite perfect for me to find a student that I already knew to really put into practice the research that I've been doing for this assignment. So because it's an SEN school, there were already kind of strategies in place. The first one that I've put here is zones of regulation. So this is commonly used to start the lesson as a kind of check-in. When they enter the room, it's placed near the door and they just kind of like look at it in Key Stage 2, and they'll kind of express to the teacher where they're at as a little check-in. As it goes up to kind of Key Stage 4, it's more just to have a reminder, and it's used to redirect students, and it kind of teaches emotional regulation. With the student that I was looking at, the kind of flaw of this was that she was more self-conscious about kind of expressing it and walking across the classroom to remind herself of what these different zones are, and because of her ADHD diagnosis, kind of remembering also to have that check-in because it's the other side of the classroom. Another strategy in place are swivel boards. So these are small kind of plastic boards with wheels on them, and their intended use is to place your feet on them under the desk, and it allows to have that kind of free-flowing movement, which works really well to keep ADHD students focused when they're fidgeting. However, the downside of this with the student that I looked at is that she didn't like the attention that was drawn to her when she used this, because it's, again, in the sensory toolkit at the front of the class, she had to put her hand up, ask for it, and it's kind of an auditory and a visual distraction for other members of the class. Ear defenders are another strategy that was in place. So these basically just go over the head. They're nice and soft and squishy, and they're used to reduce auditory stimulation. They're preventative and reactive, so you can kind of express when you want them. But the student that I'm looking at said that they draw attention to her, and she didn't like having to ask for them, and they made her feel a bit self-conscious. So my adapted strategies, the first one we came up with, because it being art and design, I thought, let's bring a nice design element into this. I teach her for GCSE, and we came up with a personalized fidget toy. This has worked really well because it's both sensory and visual stimulation. It's small and discreet during a lesson, so she can have it next to her and either just twizzle it in her fingers. Because it's 3D printed, it's got a kind of texture on the handle, which she really likes, kind of scraping her finger over. And it's really simple to use, so she can focus on the work that's in front of her and have it in her other hand. Or whilst I'm talking at the front, she can just have it spinning. She likes spinning it in her other palm as well for more kind of sensory input. And this has been really effective in redirecting her attention when she's fidgeting. Our second adapted strategy was a personalized checklist. So this is basically a laminated printout that we've designed together, and it's got everything that she needs all in one place. Because of her ADHD, she needs something very visual and very clear in front of her, so that she doesn't lose it, because she is quite forgetful, but also just so it's super clear and eye-catching. So this has been really successful in redirecting her back on task, and in quite a discreet way. She also has a diagnosis of dyslexia, and so she has a laptop for scribing anyway. And so she always has her laptop on her. This is a really easy way as a teacher, as I'm circulating the room, to just kind of like do a non-verbal cue, tap to either a zone of check-in to see where she's at, or redirect her just by tapping on the kind of 10-minute mark, the 40-minute mark. It also allows me to write the main tasks just so she doesn't have to look from her desk where she's working and sketching, for example, all the way up to the whiteboard, and in that short period of time there's room for distraction. It's right there on her desk and it's nice and clear and easy for her to see. So this has been really successful. So to summarize, personalize and tailor each strategy to each student. I think through this research it's really told me a lot about ADHD and how it is so personal to each young person, and it's about finding ways that they're motivated by. That's the main thing here. So we've got structure and consistency, sensory rich and tactile materials, using behavioral reinforcement, creative expression, flexibility and choice, and community and connection. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation.